Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the second part of our interview with Ambassador Shafqat Kakakhel, who is our foremost expert on environment and climate change. He has spent better part of his life in tackling with these issues and played very active role globally and regionally. He has been the Deputy Executive Director of UNEp. Just to quote one of his stints that he has served. Sir, first of all, I must welcome you, and I must acknowledge the tie that you are wearing. Even your tie is showing your love for environment.
Thank you, Ambassador. It's my pleasure. I have been watching your programs, and I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you, sir. And we have Ambassador Khaskeli with us, so we are the panel for the second part. I'll ask her basic three or four questions. Then you can address them as per your sort of will. First of all, what is our state of preparedness as compared to the rest of the world for climate change, and how are we ready or are we not ready? Second question is, do we have an action plan? Third question is Indus Water Treaty now in our interest? Should we go for its extension, or should we think of walking away from it? So these are the three questions. You might like to address them as you please.
Well, the first two are about climate change, and the third also has a climate change dimension. I would like to believe that what we have so far achieved since 2008, that's a significant milestone when we had the task force on climate change, which produced what remains the most comprehensive assessment of climate change. And in 2012, the government adopted a climate change policy. In 2013, there was a kind of framework for its implementation. So, since climate change is not a sectoral issue, what we've done in terms of energy and water are also significant. In energy, we have a new energy policy which focuses on renewable energy, wind and solar and hydro, as well as nuclear. You know, Pakistan is very rich in terms of the sources of renewable energy. So we have policies for that also, and we have institutions. There is the Alternative Energy Development Board. There is also Energy Conservation and Energy Efficiency, NECA. National Energy Conservation, we have that. So what we have achieved is basically at the policy formulation level. So we have very elaborate policies, frameworks, in which the foreign consultants who have experience in writing such documents, they participated. Now what we need is translating those policy documents, those policy frameworks into tangible actions. And that's where we have problems. I mean, let me give you two most important examples. In 2017, the two houses of parliament adopted the climate change bill, which sought to establish a very impressive, efficacious institutional structure for climate change in the form of a national climate council at the apex level, a climate change authority at the executive level, and a fund, a small fund, to finance projects preparation for which money was not available from external sources. That bill has remained unimplemented, and I've been writing about it. But there are fears in the Ministry of Climate Change that the establishment of the Climate Authority would take away from the ministry all the functions that it has been performing in climate change. So they don't want to, what they call, commit suicide. The second example I want to give is water. Now, all the impacts of climate change relate to water. The quality of water, the quantity of water, whether it is sea level rise, whether it is floods, whether it is droughts, whether it is the glacial, the melting of the glaciers, whether it is the erratic monsoons. So we also have problems because the Punjab, for instance, is considered the upper riparian of the Indus Basin. So the Sindhis and the Baluchis, they complain that Punjab takes away all the water when it is on its way. KP has no problems because KP actually does not utilize its water. It doesn't have cultivable land, and it is abundant in water resources. What they need is somehow increase the cultivable land because it's semi-mountainous, it's semi-arid, hyper-arid. So now 2018, April, the PMLN government adopted, and everybody was amazed because again, national policy on water was not, the consensus was not found for 70-some years. Now, once we got the consensus, and it's a very comprehensive document, the subsequent government, the PTI government, did not even mention that a framework for water has been negotiated by all the provinces and the Council of Common Interests. So, you know, we have policies, but we have not taken steps to implement those.
So we are not walking the talk, basically.
No, we are not walking the talk. We are basically, because most of these, unfortunately, most of the policy documents are written by experts, consultants, paid for by the international community. The Foreign Office is the only ministry of the federal government which cannot, by the definition of its work, hire consultants. So we have to learn how to write, we have to learn how to draft, and on. So that's the problem. I wish we develop the will and the capacity. You need both. You know, and basically what you need is institutional system. There is no institution whose job it is to coordinate, because climate change requires coordinated action, coordination at the vertical level in the federation, coordination at the horizontal level between the federation and the provinces. Because climate change doesn't happen in Islamabad, where you have the ministry. It happens in the Mufassal of Pakistan. It happens in Charsada, it happens in Tandujam, it happens in Baluchistan.
But sir, unfortunately, we have not been able to sensitize our even our students in schools and colleges and universities, what to talk of a common man in the street, about the importance of climate change, and then how to sort of tackle it, and how to, if I may say, reinvent or do some course correction in ourselves.
Absolutely, we need to do that. We need to basically green our curriculum. We have actually a number of Pakistani institutions. Universities are offering BA and Masters in environmental studies. But I have examined what they teach, and it's not good. It's not enough.
Right.
So we need action on a number of fronts. We have experts. Listen to the experts. The best thing to do is get the expertise. You don't have to have even your own resources. There are international mechanisms under the Paris Agreement. The Convention Secretariat will pay for all climate change-related policies. There is the Technology Center. They will pay for studies and capacity building. So you have the windows of international cooperation. Make use of them.
Sir, taking benefit of your presence in this program, if we were to request you to briefly spell out what policy guidelines or what framework guidelines our ministries and our other government agencies need to adopt.
Yeah, the most important recommendation in my view is to implement the National Climate Bill, which provides for, we have established the council, and the council has met once in this PDM government, but the climate authority has not been established. So implement the climate bill. Second, implement the National Water Policy of 2018. Third, give more attention, more focus to the implementation of the Energy Policy 2020. You have already made a commitment that by 2030, 60% of our resources will come from renewable. So we've done very well in two areas of renewable: nuclear. We are now having the 5th or 6th nuclear power station, and hydro. But we also made blunders in the form of coal-fired energy. And we will regret that, because coal is the most polluting source of energy and the most serious cause of climate change. So we need to implement all the policies, give greater attention to the documents we have already adopted. The national, we also have the policy on electric vehicles. But how many charging stations do we have? How many manufacturing units do we have which will put together? We unfortunately don't manufacture cars. We assemble them. But we don't even have the assembly plants. And for us, the most important source is there, China. China is a leader in electric vehicles. And they did it not only for climate change, but also because their cities were becoming uninhabitable. The Indus Water Treaty, I'm glad to say the Foreign Office of Pakistan yesterday described the Indus Water Treaty as an important treaty, as a standard for all water-related agreements, and that Pakistan was committed to it and its implementation. The Indus Water Treaty was indeed a spectacular example of the success of water-related diplomacy. And unfortunately in India, we have a government that is extremist, and Modi is looking at the election 2024. And unfortunately in India, not in Pakistan, Pakistan bashing is a vote.
A favorite thing to do.
Yeah, is a vote catcher. So I would say we, at the moment, there is international litigation. We have a court of arbitration which is looking at the complaint of Pakistan and we also have a neutral expert. Both these are provided for under the treaty. So let's hope that the two of them do not produce contradictory recommendations. My own feeling, knowing the international mechanisms as I do, I feel that they would try. A neutral expert would try to harmonize his findings with the Court of Arbitration. And what we need is actually how to energize the Indus Water Treaty. And it is basically by implementing the agreement. If there are problems that India has, we should be willing to sit with them. And we should also agree. There are recommendations. In 2010-12, there were stakeholder consultations, unofficial dialogues, supported by foreign countries. They came up with voluminous recommendations, basically on creating a body of knowledge to guide decision making. So we need, for instance, a joint study on the impacts of climate change, a joint study on glacial melt, a joint study on the monsoon patterns. Now, all of them relate to water, but the treaty was negotiated in the 1950s.
Yeah.
It was the first serious bilateral water sharing agreement. So I would be very keen. I have always been a supporter of the Indus Water Treaty.
Thank you very much, sir. I think you covered most of the subjects and whatever Tariq has asked for. Since you've been mentioning water is the crisis which we have been talking of in Pakistan, that is going to be a water scarce country by 2025 and all those things. And we are working on some dams also and inter-water treaties on the eastern side. And similarly on the Afghanistan side also, we have a river coming into Pakistan and then going into. My question is not exactly climate change related, but since it is a water resources, do you see in the future that Pakistan and Afghanistan can also have some kind of an arrangement or a treaty with regard to water distribution, or it will continue as it is?
As far as Afghanistan is concerned, first we have to appreciate the fact that actually it's almost 7 or 8 rivers that emanate from Afghanistan and enter Pakistan. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and some come to, I think, Balochistan also. But there are at least 3 significant major rivers. So you have the Kabul River, and you have the Gomal and Kurram. The Kabul River provides 20% of the flows of the Indus system. Now, that is 1/5 of the flows of the Indus, and therefore an extremely important source. Gomal and Kurram actually are the indispensable sources of water for the 2 halves of Waziristan. So the problem, the Kabul River is actually a very unusual river because both Pakistan and Afghanistan can claim to be the upper riparian. Because the Kabul River, the major input into the Kabul River before it enters Pakistan is the Kunad River, which emanates in Chitral. So it's the Chitral River which becomes Kunad once it enters Afghanistan. And it is heavily dammed between Kabul and Jalalabad. And by the time before the Kunad joins it, the Kabul River has lost most of its water. So technically we can say, look, if you create any problems. There are reports quite often that Afghanistan wants to build dams and all. So we can say, look, if you deny us the water, we can also divert the Chitral. But diverting rivers are not easy.
Very difficult, yes.
Particularly in the terrain that we have in Chitral, it'll be virtually impossible to do so. We have to basically sit with the Afghans and say, look, the Kabul is not the biggest river of Afghanistan. That's Amu Darya. Afghanistan has 4 rivers, and Afghanistan is technically more than self-sufficient in water. It's just that the most populated cities, Kabul, Sarobi, Jalalabad, happen to be dependent on the Kabul River. So we have to negotiate and offer something in terms of developing their water resources. One option could be that the Afghans can, because they need both water for irrigation and electricity. If they can make the run-of-the-river plants, like we allow India under the Indus Water Treaty. So there is no storage, no water is wasted. The water returns to the river, and they will get plenty of electricity and we will not lose water. That is one of the solutions. Afghanistan had suggested high-level talks in 2017. I have seen correspondence in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. What happened, we asked the embassy in Kabul to find out from the Afghans whether it was true that they were building dams. So they sent us the information, but they also said we suggest a high-level dialogue on water issues. The reply never went from the Foreign Office forwarded this to the line ministry. The line ministry never, as usual, never answered. Finance never answered.
Probably the reason could be that we don't have any water diplomats. You know, now there is a lot of talk in the US that you need to have water diplomats.
We need water diplomats. We also need legal experts in the Indus Water Treaty and international water courses. If you look at the composition of Pakistan's delegation at the Court of Arbitration, it's 80% foreigners and 20% indigenous, and even those local people are not really experts. One is the Secretary of the Ministry of Water Resources, who's a civil servant.
So he's not an expert.
He's a generalist.
Jami Saab is not a water expert. So our Indus Commissioner knows water resources. Meher Ali Shah knows his water. He's a trained waterman. But we need to significantly augment our capacity, even to deal with the legal aspect.
Thank you, sir. You were mentioning about diversion of water, but just to mention to you, you might have heard of Neelam Dam, in which we have built tunnels and diverted the Neelam and brought it under the Jhelum River and made a dam underwater, basically, which is about 960 plus megawatts of project, which was a unique kind of a thing, in which we built about 51 kilometers of tunnels. So that was a kind of a new thing which has been done in Pakistan.
It was also a hell of an expensive one.
Yeah, it is. That definitely was, because not much of a feasibility was done, and later on when the cost escalation came and all those things came.
You know, you have to remember that what does it cost to produce hydroelectricity? And what does it cost? All the dams. You know, the South Asia, the Himalayas are the youngest mountain system. So all the lakes, all the rivers, all the ponds, everything, water reservoirs tend to get silted up. And frequently you have to desilt and spend hundreds of millions of dollars. Warsak Dam has the capacity of producing 300, 320 megawatts, but it is silted up. So why not go for designs which are less complicated and less expensive, small dams, and go for renewable energy. So, but small hydro, somehow WAPDA has never shown much support for that. Big bureaucracies require big projects, and there are obvious temptations in big projects.
You were talking of different documentation which are there in Pakistan, readily available, the national water policy, the climate bill and all those. What do you think, why we have been unable to implement all this? Like, is it the line ministries, the concerned departments? Who's going to, collect them together and put them, in a formal shape? Or it's the governments are not interested, or the individuals are not interested? Where does the fault lie in our country?
I think there are a number of multiple factors. One is the insufficient resources. We do not have the resources. India, for instance, builds 80% of its dams with their own money. We have never built a dam with our own money. Every dam, whether it's the Amar Basha, whether it's Mangla, whether it's Tarbela, whether it is Warsak, we got international support. So lack of resources is one. Second is lack of technical and scientific know-how and capacity. We our water engineering, hydro engineering, civil engineering is not as developed as other disciplines. So there is the question of lack of capacity. I think these will be the main reasons, and I want to conclude this discussion by saying that all the problems that Pakistan faces has one major reason, and that is population. Yeah. We started with 32 million people. We are today nearing 245 or 50. No, the latest figure is 245 million. 8 times increase is absolutely unsustainable. You will run out of land, you will run out of space, you will run out of water, everything. There is no way. Our soil, our lands, which are overwhelmingly, very few people realize that the fertile lands are 40% of the land. The rest is arid and hyper-arid and semi-arid. But how will you support? We bring to this world the population of Norway every year, 5 to 7 million people. This is just unsustainable. There has to be, I was happy to read that the USAID was financing, the World Bank is providing $100 million for population planning because nobody talks about population planning. Yeah. This almost 4% rate of interest, it's much worse than sub-Saharan Africa. So whether it's climate change, whether it's water problem, whether it's energy problem, whether it is food security, the driver of all these problems and many more
is population.
Is our population, and we have to garner the strength, the political will, and the resources to do something about it.
Thank you so much, sir. This has been a great learning experience. We enjoyed our session a lot, and hope to, sir, keep benefiting from your wisdom and experience and your dedication to this this is an existential threat for us, and we really need to focus on it. hopefully both these sessions will help our policymakers to focus on this important area, and maybe we will be a little more wiser and more practical in the days to come. Thank you so much.
I share your hope and prayer.
Thank you.